If there is anybody that can join, they'll be there during the lesson and come back afterwards. And you'll have our scripture reading, and then Andy will introduce our speaker.
Good morning. Today's reading will be from 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 7 through 9. So they got up and fled in the dusk and abandoned their tents and their horses and donkeys. They left the camp as it was and ran for their lives. The men who had leprosy reached the edge of the camp, entered one of the tents, and ate and drank. Then they took silver, gold, and clothes, and went off and hid them. They returned and entered another tent, and took some things from it, and hid them also. Then they said to each other, "What we are doing is not right. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. Let's go at once and report this to the royal palace."
Let me try something with you. Normally, when we're in a public setting, we ask audiences to silence their phones, right? I'm encouraging you to take your phone out, take it off of silence if you have it on there, and open a browser, please. I don't know if Wes has done this, but it's a little commercial for Herald of Truth, and either type into your browser or speak it however you get there to Truth Digital Media, truthdigitalmedia.org. Truth Digital, all one word, digitalmedia.org. Okay? And see, it should pop up something like that, right? Okay? And the menu, I should wait probably. That menu bar up on the upper left-hand corner, if you found it, will give you some scheduling, a little bit more information. And a couple days ago, I popped it open, and Steve Ridgell was doing one of his little devotionals. This is somewhat embryonic. We're still working on that. But it's all Church of Christ, if you prefer that, programming. And it's some of the old timey guys, some of the historic figures, some of the great speakers from the past, Batsell Barrett Baxter and John Allen Chalk and others, and some new guys, and there's some podcasts, and then there's music. We've got, I don't know how much there's a cappella music is, but we've got, they didn't sell it to us, I don't think. They let us use their music, so you'll find that on there. In fact, anyway, so if you're there, I lost it. Let me try it again. We may. There we go. Okay, so what this is, it's 24-hour, I think, it's supposed to be, programming, and we call it internet radio. So you can keep this on and keep listening to stuff. Maybe some of you listen to K-Love here in Chicago or other places or some other channels, but give this a whirl. Okay, enough for a commercial. I'm going to introduce Steve Ridgell again. He's been introduced multiple times this weekend, and I've known Steve for those 10 or 12 years of the 20 or so that he's been with Herald of Truth. His education is from Abilene, including advanced degrees from there. They live in Abilene, he and his wife Marcia, now out in a ranch apparently. Have to go see that. And Steve, I know at one time was an elder down at Southern Hills, he moved over to Hillcrest Church, where my first year in Abilene, I went to Hillcrest. The main reason was because it was closest to the cafeteria, and when you come out of the south, some of you will understand the urgent need to drive rapidly to the restaurant or whatever of your choice, and it happened to be the cafeteria to beat the other churches, right, to get your meal on Sunday. So Hillcrest, and it's thriving. I'm glad to hear that the church is thriving. He is there, as he is for Herald of Truth. He's their domestic minister or their local evangelist. I'm not sure. I don't think he has a title other than Jesus storyteller, okay? And that's what we love about Steve. And Rob used the word passionate multiple times, and I will echo that and say that Steve is wonderful and passionate about sharing Jesus with people. Fun fact, personal fact, Steve, when Betsy and I were contemplating getting married 2 or 3 years ago, Steve agreed to do our wedding for us. We had gotten our license in Abilene, where he was. We ended up not doing it in Abilene. We got down Kerrville, and Steve didn't do the wedding, but he was willing to help us out. So we appreciate Steve, and thanks for coming. Come speak.
Thanks, Andy. Well, I got to tell you, I was going to do their wedding. That is true. And when Andy called to say, we're going to do it somewhere, you don't need to do it, my first thought was, Andy, I'm so sorry. I'm so glad she came to her senses, but I'm so sorry. And it's a different place. I was like, oh, forget all that I just said. Yeah. But no, I love y'all. And Andy and Wes are on our board at Herald of Truth. Love them. Been to Cuba with Wes, and love he enjoyed. I love this church. I was here several years ago, and none of you have changed, and that's good. What I do a little, but what I do like is I see new faces that I don't remember. I'm going to count that as growth, so I'm happy about that, and I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for the plug for Truth. Yeah, you know more about digital media than I do. This is what I know. They call and say, we need you to record a few things. I send it in, and I don't know what happens after that, but apparently it comes out somewhere. So good. Thanks for the plug for the book. If you're going to ask 2 or 3, can I tell you a story? How to use stories to help people learn about Jesus? Followers making followers, about how to live as a disciple maker. And my newest one is Wounds into Scars. It's for people that love Jesus and can't get over, can't get past, can't feel forgiven for their sins. And so happy for you to read any of those. If you're ever in Abilene, bring it. I'll sign it. How's that? So there you go. And for those of you that think this guy's kind of weird, but I kind of like, go on YouTube. I think there's some formal way to do it. Just go to Steve Ridgell. Subscribe to my YouTube 3 times a week. I did a little 3 to 5 minute. I'm thinking about God, and here's what I thought about. They come from the ranch, from Scripture, from life, from people we convert. So it is true, when I'm in Abilene city limits, I work for Hillcrest, talk about Jesus. When I leave the city limits, I work for Herald of Truth and talk about Jesus. So I've got a pretty good life. I mean, I get much better than that. Wherever I go, my job literally is to talk about Jesus. So we're going to tell one of those stories. I want to tell you, I'm convinced something's happening in our world. I believe something amazing is happening in our country. And it does not have to do with the election. Whether I don't care if you were for Donald Harris or if you were for Kamala Trump, it does not matter to me. I'm not political. I have a greater king. But I will tell you, there's something amazing happening in our country. It is going on college campuses. There is a revival coming in our country. People are being baptized by the dozens and dozens. One of the most recent I read, Ohio State University, some of you may have read about it. A bunch of kids started worshiping. They got more and they got more, and one of the tight ends on the football team got up and preached a sermon and said, you need to be born again. They drug a bunch of tubs out of the trainer's room and started baptizing kids, baptized several dozen kids on the Ohio State University campus. It's happened at Auburn. It happened down at Faulkner not too long ago. All over our world. It's happening at Hillcrest, where people are coming to Jesus. Every week we have people coming to Jesus, to give their lives to Jesus, be born again. It is fantastic. So today I want to share a story that encapsulates a lot of who we want to be. It is one of the most graphic, one of the most hard stories you will ever read. It is found in 2 Kings 6 and 7. And I'm just going to kind of talk you through the story. God's people are besieged by the enemy. It is hard. They have cut them off. They're not getting any supplies in. Food is getting scarce. And food is getting so scarce that a donkey head people are selling donkey heads of silver. Wow. Not a donkey. You're not buying a donkey to eat. You're buying donkey head. Now, we've been married just over 51 years. My wife, Marcia's with me. Grandson Andrew's back there. You know, even at 51 years, I still think, okay, on your anniversary, you ought to do something nice. You ought to go out for a nice meal. I've never said, I wonder if I can save up enough money to have donkey head. I've never wanted to do that for our anniversary. And if you're poor, by the way, that's if you're rich. If you're poor, you're not buying donkey head. You know what you're buying if you're poor? Dove dung. What did he say? Can you say that in the pulpit? Well, it's in Scripture. Now, your translation may say a cab of seed pods, or your translation may say what it really is, dove dung, bird droppings. Now, in Abilene, we've got a couple of places in town where grackles leave deposits all over. And not too long ago, I was at the mall, truck under a tree. Grackles had deposited all over my truck. I did not say, how bad do things have to be when rich people eat dove dung? We need to tell you, we live in a hard world. You know that, right? There's a lot of hard things that happen in our world. Man, people get sick and die. And hurricanes and tornadoes and wildfires come through and devastate things. Hurricanes, and almost every day you read of someone battening down, people that die from. Things are horrible. Things are bad in our world. And there's so much evil in our world. School shootings, sexual slavery, so much abuse and so much greed and so much pain from the evil in it is a hard world, just like they lived in. And then it got worse for them. How can it be worse than rich people in donkey head and poor people in dove dung? Well, here's how it gets worse. King's walking around the walls one day. Woman calls down and says, King, help me. Help you. How can I help you? You want to go to the wine press? There's nothing there. You want to go to the threshing floor? There's nothing there. But how? How can I, what can I do for you? And here's what this woman said. This lady yesterday said, let's kill and eat your son today. And tomorrow we will kill and eat my son. And so I gave her my son, and we killed my son, and we ate my son, and today she won't give up her son. Make her give up her son so we can eat. They are doing cannibalism for their own children. Wow. Well, I got the thing about dove dung and donkey head, and it's kind of a hard world, but I don't know how it gets worse. Well, yeah, it gets worse because sometimes the sin in our world is done, well, by some of us sometimes. Man, we don't always have it together like we want to have it together. We don't always do what we say we're going to do. We get up and make these promises as God's people. We're going to love the poor. We're going to love people. We're going to talk about Jesus. And if we're not careful, all those good intentions just followed up on. And we're going to live just like Jesus. Tell you what, if my neighbor does that one more time, I'm going to go over there and punch him in the nose, just like Jesus would. Well, wow. It gets tough. Even God's people sometimes live in a fallen world where it's hard to do what we mean. The king rips his robes off, and he has sackcloth and ashes under him. And then he says the oddest thing. He says, may God deal with me if today the head of Elisha the prophet does not come off. Where'd you get that? You know what a prophet is? Someone who speaks for who? God. You know what the king was saying? God, why are you doing this? God, this is your fault. Bring me your prophet. I'm going to whack his head off because I've had it with all of this. You think people don't blame God for what's going on in our world today? Some of you may have been there, but you've heard people who blame God. Okay, Christian, where was your God? Tornado came. That guy over there, he is a heathen, and his house was spared, and I'm a believer, and it wiped my house out. Or, God, where were you when a drunk driver ran a stop sign and killed my kid? Where were you? My wife got cancer. I begged you to spare her, and she died. Where's God in all that? What sexual slavery? What kind of God lets that? And on and on and on they go blaming God. Well, we Christians get it. We know God didn't make that kind of world. God made a perfect world. We made choices that messed it up, and then God's redeeming the world. But in the middle of all that, here's the king saying, God, man. And so Elisha goes to the king. And here's what he tells the king. Tomorrow at this time, that little money you're giving for dove dung, you can take and you can buy grain, you can buy barley, you can buy fine flour, just a few shekels. And they're like, we're paying 80 shekels for donkey head, and you're telling me a few shekels. What is it? In fact, one of the guys that was helping the king, one of his aides, says, even if God opened the windows of heaven, how could that happen? And Elisha says, oh, it'll happen. You'll see it. You won't get to enjoy it or participate in it, but you'll see it. I love Elisha for that, because in the middle of all this, when the king's blaming God and things are so bad, there's Elisha saying, God will save. Now, you can figure out where we're going with this one. You know who we are? We're the Elisha standing up in our world and saying, God is alive. God saves. Jesus is real. Jesus died for your sins. God raised him from the dead. We are the people standing in the midst of a broken, hurting, ruined world saying, we believe God is real. He had a son, Jesus, who is real. That is us. And there's always somebody who doesn't want to believe it. God opened the windows of heaven. I mean, look around, people. We're eating dove dung. How in the world can God do? And there are people looking around our world saying, God can't fix this. No way. And there will be people that someday will realize that our God did. And they won't be part of it. So in the middle of all this horrible thing, there are 4 lepers. Now you're going, okay, what's the big deal about lepers? Well, especially in that time, leprosy was thought to be incredibly contagious. I mean, you just did not touch a leper if you could help it, because they were unclean. And in fact, it was so bad, if you were a leper, you walked around doing this. Somebody would say, hey, I'm Steve. You'd go, hey, leper. Oh, sorry, okay, I'm Steve, and I'm going to greet you from back here. Don't shake a leper's hand. And leprosy was very disfiguring, especially on the extremities. You'd have fingers fall off. Your ear might fall off. Nose would go away from leprosy. And so lepers were often covered head to toe and had to go around telling them, I'm a leper, don't touch me. And what do lepers do in a city that's starving? Where do you get money for dove dung? Nobody's going to let you work. Hey, you want to open McDonald's? Yeah, we'll hire a bunch of lepers to fix food. Nobody's going to eat there. Well, let me fix your furniture. I'll build furniture as a leper. Not going to sit where a leper's touched. Not going to do that. So you know what lepers had to do to make a living? Beg. Lepers begged. What do you beg for when people are paying money for dove dung? Hey, can I have a tip of the donkey's ear, rich guy? Can I eat the 3 hairs that stick up off the corner of his ear because I'm a leper? I don't have anything. And you're going, so how does that apply to any of us? Well, you know who the lepers are. That's us. No, Steve. We're the good, but we're not the lepers. Yeah, you know why? We're the ones that know how bad we are without Jesus. We get it. We know what our life was before Jesus. We know the times we did what we should not have done and did not do what we should have done. We get it. We know without Jesus we are hopeless and helpless. What we know there's no way we're going to the judgment day and say, hey, God, let me in, because, you and me kind of got it together. We know none of us have it together except for Jesus. We get that. We get that our marriages aren't like anybody else because of Jesus. We don't act like everybody else because of Jesus. Not because we are inherently better, but because of Jesus. And so the lepers are sitting around talking. If we stay here at the city gates, we're going to die. Go into the city where they're all starving, we're going to die there. I tell you what, let's do. Why don't we go to the camp of the enemy? Why would they do that? Well, here's why. We go to the camp of the enemy. Maybe they'll have mercy on us. Maybe they'll say, these poor lepers. Maybe they'll feed us and we'll live. And if not, they'll stab us. Maybe we'll die quick. So whether we, let's go surrender to the enemy. Okay, there's no application you're making about that to us. Well, yeah, I am. We're all the ones who realized at some point in your life, you looked at Jesus and said, I have no life without you. I am helpless without you. I am hopeless without you. And we gave our lives to Jesus. We were born again in baptism, died with him, raised to a new life. We got it that at one point we could not save ourselves because none of us are good enough to save ourselves. None of us. So they go, and they get near the camp. And you can imagine how this plays out. Hello, camp. Hey, lepers coming in from the city. Hello, the camp. And nobody answers. Hello? Hey, we're here from the... They kind of go in, look around the edge of the camp. Nobody's there. They open a tent. Nobody's there. You know why nobody was there? God had caused the enemy to hear the sound of horses and chariots. And they panicked. The king of the besieged city had called mercenaries, and they are going to destroy us and kill us. And they panicked, and they ran and left everything. Hear this, in the middle of a hard world, when nobody thinks God is active, and we're the only ones standing there saying, God is real. Our God is at work. Whether you see him or not, our God is active. What I firmly believe is starting to happen. We're in the midst of a great revival. We are on the front edge of that. I believe that as God is preparing that. I see it on the college campus. I see it at Hillcrest. I see it when I go out and visit. It may come right here to Cardinal Drive. God is at work when nobody knows it. There are people in this world that are lost without Jesus and think there is no God, and he is working on them right now. He's moving people like you into their neighborhood. He's putting people like you to work with them or go to school with them. So someday when they say, I don't know about Jesus, boom, one of us is right there to say, I'd love to talk to you about Jesus. God is at work when nobody knows it. So what did the lepers do when they figured out the tent and they started eating everything? They're starving and they're eating. They were like a bunch of preachers at a buffet. No offense to any of us preachers, but they were shoving food in their mouth, and then somebody said, hey, there's silver and gold. Well, they grab it and they run out and they dig a hole and they bury it. And then they go get some more. And man, you talk about the greatest day of their life. The lepers who were starving to death, couldn't make it at all of a sudden rich. I'm not, it's true, I did go to college, and they passed some degrees because at some point it's like, how long is this guy going to be here? So I got it, and they moved me on. But I'm not real smart, and I certainly am not good about business, but I think if I was those lepers, I think I could get a business plan together. Huh? Hey, 80 shekels of silver for a donkey head. I have a cow they left behind. How much am I bid for that? They could control the city. They had it made. And all of a sudden, one of them turned around and said this, we're not doing right. This is a day of good news. And if we keep silent, punishment will overtake us. Let's go tell everybody the good news. Now you get exactly the parallel for us. We have the best ever. We're the lepers. We are rich on anything we ever could have deserved. There's no way that you're good enough for God to send His Son to die for you. And He did, because He loves you. He loves you that much. And we know that. And God help us if all we do about that is circle up on Sunday morning, share communion together, sing a few songs, hear a good sermon, and go out and say, boy, aren't we God's people? And pat ourselves on the back and keep our mouths shut. Today's the day of good news. We ought to be celebrating. Church ought to be the time when we gather up and we celebrate. We need to look a whole lot more like a party than a funeral. Like you were baptized in pickle juice. Man, we got to be the people. Look what God has done for us. Are you not the most blessed person ever? You're going to live in heaven for you with all your sin and all your problems and all your you're going to live in heaven forever. Boy, think what you would be without Jesus and what you are because of Jesus. How great is that? And if we keep our mouth shut, outside these walls, there is a dying world who does not know what we know. But what if we tell them and they don't believe it? That's on them. That's their issue, not our issue. They don't even know there's a whole feast waiting for them in their life. We do. And if we keep quiet, what was God thinking when He said, I want everybody to know, and here's my plan. I'll get my believers and I'll put them all out there in the world and they'll tell everybody. And what if we don't? How's your neighbor going to know about Jesus, your coworker, your classmate? Who's going to tell them if it's not us? And so they went back to tell everybody. They go in and say, you're not going to believe this. Enemy's gone, camp's there, food for everybody. And the king says it's a trap. Okay, when you start telling everybody the good news of Jesus, there are going to be people that say, that's too good to be true. God sent a son to die for my sins. I can live forever. That's too good to be true. But it is true. Now, here's how the king did it. The king said, let's find 5 of the horses that are left. And let's go out and check out and see if this is true. Okay, I know a little bit about horses. I know more about cattle, but I know a little bit about horses. I'm not sure I know how horses really think. But I got to tell you, if horses think at all, and I'm going, they're coming to ride us out there to see what's going on. And they're eating donkey head for $80. And I'm worth a whole lot more than a donkey. I don't want to go. If I'm a horse, I flop over like I'm dead and hope nobody. But they rode them out there, and guess what they found out? It was true. So you know what I tell people? You think this is too good to be true? Come live with us. Come visit our assembly. Come talk to us. Watch us do life. Do life with us for a while. See how we do life together and see that it is real and it is life-changing. You remember the guy that said, well, if God opened windows of heaven, how could that happen? You remember that guy? You know what his job was when they found out it was true? They said, okay, come here. You stand at the gate and you're going to keep order. So you do something like this. Okay, let's line up, please. All the A's will come first to eat. All the B's will be next. One at a time, please. You know what happened when they found out? They opened the gates. The guy stood there and said, okay, we're going to do this in an orderly fashion. You know what happened to him? They trampled him to death because they were running out to find the good and trampled him. There will be people we will tell the good news to who will never believe it and who will pay for it. That's not our job to control the results. Our job is to be sure they know the message. It is good news. I can't control whether somebody responds to it. God will handle all that. But I sure can control whether or not they hear the good news. So this is great, Steve. What's the point for us today? Well, you get the point. Man, please hear this. If you are not a Christian and you're in here today, man, God's let His Son die for you. and he wants you to live with him forever. And it's time for you to be born again. And if you're not sure what that entails, man, talk to anybody around you. Come see me, talk to one of the preachers, one of the elders. Find somebody here you know and say, listen, I've been sitting here and I had never done anything about it, and I want to know, can we talk about me being born again? Or better yet, man, just come up and say, today's the day. I'm ready to get born again. Y'all have a baptistry? Y'all have a horse trough? We use a horse trough sometimes, so. Or last time we baptized somebody last Sunday, and I took one step in, and our heating pump was broken. And after I quit crying and screaming, they calmed me down. We baptized them anyhow. But you know what the point of that is? We're ready to baptize you today. If you want to be born again today, that would be fantastic. I'll even delay lunch to watch it, because that would be the best thing you could. Great lesson, but I kind of don't. I kind of bought in. I don't really live it like. I'm not doing as well as I should, and I don't know if I can talk. You know what? You don't have to do this alone. You don't. Man, you come to the preacher, come to one of the elders, come to me, and I'll connect you with somebody. Ask somebody around you and say, I need help. My addictions are kicking me. Man, I'm not being the husband I should, or I'm not the parent I should. I want to be a better Christian about. And you know what? We'll speak truth in your life. We'll pray with you. We'll walk alongside of you. You do not do this by yourself. And if you think, but nobody's ever messed up their Christian life like I have, trust me, your leaders have been there. Man, lots of them. We do believe that Jesus makes alcoholics sober, and he makes sexually immoral people pure, and he makes mean people sweet, and he makes greedy people generous. And you know how I know that? Because some of you were, and now you are not. And that's the message, that's the good news for every one of us. So, man, get your act back together for Jesus, and then start telling everybody. And if this morning you're sitting there and you're thinking, I know somebody I want to tell. I know somebody I want to talk. I'm going to talk to my classmate. I'm going to talk to my aunt. I'm going to talk to my coworker. I'm going to talk to my friend. You know what you ought to do? Stop somebody this morning and say, hey, would you pray for Fred? I work with him. I want to say something about Jesus. Would you pray for him for me? And if we'll start doing that with each other, giving each other names to pray for, one is God may start working on their heart. Two, boy, we'll be asking, hey, did you get to say anything? And it reminds you, you made a commitment, and it reminds you to say something. So here's what I'm going to do this morning. We're going to be singing a song. And man, if you want to come forward and say, hey, I want to be baptized, or hey, I need help, somebody I want you to pray for, just, man, preacher will be hanging around. Come get one of us. I'll walk up and down the aisle during the song and wave me over, and I'll connect you. Find someone to pray with you, to facilitate your journey being stronger and healthier, or to help you today be born again, because today is the day of good news, that God loved you so much, he let his son die for you, and he raised him from the dead. And if you're born again to that new life, you will never, truly, ever die, but you will live forever with the God of heaven. And that is good news. Let's all stand together while we sing.